But when everyone talks about World War II, the images typically come to mind. Tanks rolling across fields, squadrons of bombers in tight formation, generals holding up massive maps as though it's a large map, and letting the G's are playing some kind of lethal board game. But war had a lot to do with the silent, unseen moments, odd accidents, secret events and unexplained accidents, small groups of forgotten soldier groups and small numbers of soldiers, personal histories lost to oblivion when history gets buried under the din of noise. Today I want to step into that world with you, the part of the war that just doesn't show up in most documentaries, the part that wasn't written up by historians and talked about in class. These were the stories that lived in diary pages, letters back home, and recollections of days after the war passed away. Stories that almost disappeared. So sit back, because for the next hour, we'll be digging into the shadows of World War II, where the unbelievable, the tragic, the heroic, and the downright strange collide. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Lost Battalion, 275 men who vanished. It's late 1944, southern France, and a region of mountain ranges where the air is thin, the paths narrow, where fog begins rolling in like a living thing in the early morning. An American infantry battalion, around 275 men assigned to it, cross a wooded pass and clear off a few small pockets of German troops, leaving nothing unusual, nothing extraordinary. But the world changes that morning. The fog is so thick that soldiers later reported they couldn't see the man just a few steps before them. And because the terrain twists and breaks into countless smaller side paths, the battalion's commander unwittingly guides the whole unit down the wrong track, a trail that didn't show up on their maps, a path the Germans didn't think anyone would find, because hidden from view along that route was a network of camouflaged bunkers, machine gun nests, unmarked minefields, all in a secret German defensive stronghold employed by their mountain troops. The Americans walk right into it. The first explosion bursts through the silence. Then the gunfire starts, not from out of nowhere, but on top, precisely and controlled. The kind of gunfire from people who know the ground better than the back of their own hands. The battalion instantly attempts to call for assistance, but within moments the radios get hit. The fog blocks visual signals, and the small valleys ingest the sound of gunfire as if it never had taken place. From then on, the battalion becomes invisible. Some men take off and seek refuge in the woods. Others dig in and fight. Some are captured. Some just disappear off into the mountains, a space in which cliffs unravel, ravines sink endlessly, and even one slip to nothing, and we can mark away a person from history. Hours later, when the fog finally dissipates, the whole battalion is gone. The search crews scour the area for days. They discover worn casings, ripped clothing, a few helmets, but virtually no bodies. Finally, 27 men come home, and every other soldier, almost 250 of them, still goes missing. And years later, hikers at times find a rusted dog tag or a piece of equipment, but the men themselves, they were never located. And in just that moment, a battalion that kicked off the day with a simple assignment transforms into one of the war's great enigmas. Chapter 2. The Radio Operator Without Radio. Now let's leap from one global market to another, to a sweaty, confining jungle somewhere in the Pacific, where walking feels like a sponge getting soaked, and every tree is cloaked in 100 shadows. Enter John, a young American radio man. But John has a problem. He's a radio man without a radio. Why? Because the Japanese forces on that island had radio detection equipment so precise that the moment someone turned on a transmitter, artillery fire would erupt by screaming in less than 5 minutes. So it became the order from the top. We go silent. No radio, no signals, no calls for backup. For a scout team operating alone in the jungle, that's virtually suicide. But John rejects that, of course, and refuses to allow that. So he comes up with his own communication system, with a system only of his own, relying on nothing but the jungle that surrounds him in the jungle. When it's safe to move, he whistles twice the jungle bird. When danger lurks forward, he taps a rock to a tree trunk, and he uses the echo to indicate distance. He becomes fluent in mimicking the chirrup of insects, branch snapping, and the faraway roll of thunder. To the Japanese, it's merely the jungle. To John's platoon, it's a private language. He even recognizes that there might be an enemy patrol at night by the way crickets suddenly quiet. That simple realization saves his whole company from being into an ambush. After the war, no one writes about John. He doesn't receive a medal ceremony, but ask any of the soldiers who fought alongside him, and all will recite the same narrative. John kept us alive. Sometimes it's the quiet that the most courageous heroes prefer to share, and let the world do the talking on behalf of them. Chapter 3. The Ghost, B-17, that landed itself. Oh, and just about every one of the most bizarre stories of the war itself. A tale that still leaves pilots scratching their heads decades later. It's 1943. A British airfield is functioning normally one morning when someone sees an oncoming B-17 bomber approaching the ground below the horizon. First, nothing appears wrong. The plane maintains a level altitude, a consistent speed, but as it moves toward altitude, the ground crew figures something isn't right. No radio contact, no recognition signals, and the plane's nose is riddled with bullet holes. The tower hollers again and again, B-17, identify yourself. Silence. But the plane does line up exactly with the runway, drops its landing gear, reduces throttle, and hits one of the smoothest landings on that airfield the plane's crew had ever encountered. When the crew flits towards the doors, they find the impossible. The plane is completely empty, not a single pilot, no bombardier, no gunners. All seats are empty, all the harnesses were unclasped, and the strangest part, all the parachutes are gone. Which means the crew bailed out, probably under the impression the plane was done for. But somehow this wounded, flying without a pilot aircraft stayed on its way for miles, then landed perfectly on its own. To this day, no one really knows how. The airfield crew began calling it the Ghost Bomber, a machine with no crew, still determined to make it home.